Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight. We have a guest in here, Dustin Brandon. Welcome, Dustin. And he'll be talking about his medical use of marijuana, and you're a comedian, right?
Yes, sir.
We'll talk about some of your comedic work. Over in the outfield there is Mr. John Cornett. Hey, John. And John's got a couple songs he's going to play for us tonight, as usual. We have about 15 minutes of hemp news, a lot of hemp news over the past couple weeks. I'm fresh back from the 48th annual Great Midwest Marijuana Harvest Fest. Had a great time there. We'll have some videos from that next week. We have other videos this week. And without further ado, we will bring on our infamous Dancing Cannabis Leaves.
Feel the force.
No. Hey, welcome. Our first story tonight is from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. 62% of U.S. adults believe that the use of marijuana should be made legal, according to national survey data compiled by the Pew Research Center and released on Monday. The percentage is the highest ever reported by Pew, which has been keeping track of Americans' view on marijuana legalization since 1969. Support was strongest among the millennials generation at 74%, Democrats at 69%, independents at 68%. Support for legalization was weakest among Republicans, 45%, and those born between the years 1928 and 1945 at 39%. Since 2000, the year 2000, public support in favor of legalization has nearly doubled, Pew reported. The Pew data is consistent with those of other national polls, including those conducted by the Gallup organization at 64% and the Center for American Progress at 68%. Another more great news from Saipan in the Northern Mariana Islands, which is a United States territory. The governor of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, a U.S. territory of approximately 54,000 people, has signed legislation into law legalizing the use and retail sale of cannabis. House and Senate lawmakers had previously approved the measure in a vote last month by 24-1. 24-1. I got to go to Saipan, I think. Those are our kind of people. Under this new law, those over the age of 21 will be permitted to possess and grow personal use quantities of cannabis and to obtain cannabis-infused products such as tinctures and extracts from licensed retailers. Commercial marijuana cultivation will be subject to a 10% excise tax. Those under 21 years of age who suffer from a qualifying medical condition will also be legally permitted to access cannabis. Public cannabis consumption, along with the use of marijuana while in the presence of a minor, is subject to a civil penalty. A 5-member commission there in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands will oversee the implementation of the new law. Members of the commission must be appointed within 30 days. The commission must adopt regulations governing the medical and adult use markets within 180 days of its initial organizational meeting. Also way out there in the Pacific, in the capital of Hagatna, Guam. Did you know the capital of Guam is Hagatna? The governor for the U.S. territory of Guam has signed legislation permitting qualified medical cannabis patients and their caregivers the ability to grow personal use amounts of cannabis at home. Under the new law, applicants can apply to the Department of Health and Social Services in Guam to receive a home cultivation permit. Approved applicants can grow up to 6 mature plants and 12 immature plants. Voters in 2014 approved a Guam ballot measure establishing a medical cannabis program. Under the program, patients with cancer, post-traumatic stress, epilepsy, and other qualifying conditions are eligible to obtain cannabis from licensed dispensaries. However, to date, no such facilities are up and running. Lawmakers say that allowing patients the option to grow marijuana at home is an interim solution to address the government's failure to move the program forward in an expeditious manner. In the Great White North, this Wednesday, Canada will become the second nation to explicitly legalize the social use, possession, cultivation, and retail production and sale of cannabis. The new law marks the culmination of an effort led by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who promised in 2015, shortly after taking office, to legalize and regulate the marijuana market. But Prime Minister Trudeau was not always in favor of adult use legalization. In fact, even though his mother is a very open cannabis smoker. In fact, for many years, he opposed it. That was until he met face-to-face with cannabis advocates, and they apparently have switched him. He first met with them back in 2012. Speaking with the Huffington Post in 2013, Trudeau acknowledged that he reversed his position after speaking with cannabis activists. Trudeau said, quote, "Their line of argument did a long way toward convincing me," end quote. I would think maybe his mother might convince him too. Here's how the Toronto Star reported the event. 5 short years ago, Trudeau was not a fan of legalized pot. As he wandered around the 2012 Liberal Policy Convention in Ottawa, the same one in which the majority of the party members voted in favor of legalization, Trudeau was a dissenting voice. By the end of 2012, a lot of things had changed for Trudeau beyond his appearance. He changed his mind about running for the Liberal leader, officially launching his campaign in October, and he was also starting to see that legalization was better than decriminalization, which he'd long favored. Cannabis activists helped persuade Trudeau that legalization would be the best way for the Canadian government to regulate its use and keep it safe. The lesson here is clear. Never forget that change begins with a single step and that significant policy reforms can be inspired by a single interaction with lawmakers. So get involved. You know, back in the 70s, Trudeau's mother was the brunt of many jokes. Trudeau's father was the prime minister too, Pierre Trudeau, and his wife was famous for going around with Andy Warhol and Mick Jagger, and it was a common joke on Saturday Night Live, "I slept with Margaret Trudeau." Well, that's the mother of the current prime minister, Justin Trudeau. Just to give you a little history there. U.S. Customs and Border Protection issued a clarification to a policy many feared would prevent Canadians who work or invest in marijuana businesses from entering the United States, indicating, quote, "A Canadian citizen working or facilitating the proliferation of legal marijuana industry in Canada coming to the U.S. for reasons unrelated to the marijuana industry will generally be admissible to the United States. However, if a traveler is found to be coming to the U.S. for the reason related to the marijuana industry, they may be deemed inadmissible," end quote, from the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. Our next story is from Sacramento, California, another state that also has a Governor Brown. Democratic Governor Jerry Brown has signed legislation, Assembly Bill 1793, facilitating the automatic review and expungement of hundreds of thousands of past marijuana convictions. The new law requires, quote, "the Department of Justice of the State of California before July 1st, 2019, to review the records in the State Summary Criminal History Information Database and to identify past convictions that are potentially eligible for recall or dismissal of sentence, dismissal and sealing or redesignation pursuant to the Adult Use of Marijuana Act. Prosecutors should have up to a year to either vacate the conviction or reduce it from a felony to a misdemeanor. An estimated 500,000 Californians are eligible for relief under the new law. According to Dale Geringer, a longtime cannabis activist and California NORML director, he says, quote, "It's safe to say the number of persons eligible to have their offenses reduced from felonies to misdemeanors is in the hundreds of thousands," end quote. Most people should be relieved to no longer have a felony on their record. Governor Brown also took action on several other marijuana-related bills. Specifically, he vetoed Senate Bill 1127, which permitted certain students to access medicinal cannabis products on school grounds, and Assembly Bill 1996, which authorized the University of California Center for Medical Cannabis Research to cultivate marijuana for clinical trial research. The governor also vetoed Senate Bill 829, which prohibited cultivation taxes from being imposed on medicinal cannabis designated for donation to indigent patients, and signed into law Senate Bill 1294, which allocates grant funding to assist minority-owned businesses in the cannabis industry. So it's a mixed bag. You know, I remember last year, Governor Brown vetoed a bill that would have prohibited the use of cannabis on state beaches and in state parks. So that was a good thing. Out of Albany, New York, the working group appointed by New York Governor Andrew Cuomo to draft New York's legislation to legalize is taking public comments on this initiative until the end of October. And you can submit your own comments by going to rmls@health.ny.gov. That's rmls@health.ny.gov. Our next story is from New Hampshire. New Hampshire's commission to study the legalization, regulation, and taxation of marijuana will deliver its final report to Governor Chris Sununu by November 1st. The commission includes legislators, law enforcement officials, state regulators, and law and medical professionals. The report will include recommendations for a legal marijuana market if legalization legislation were to pass, ranging from a regulatory framework to licensing processes to tax rates and revenue projections. New Jersey lawmakers discussed the finer details of pending marijuana legalization legislation. The forthcoming bill addresses taxes, regulations, and eligibility to operate a marijuana business. It also includes provisions to address racial inequities in marijuana arrests and to provide for expungement. We'll look forward to that passing, getting to the governor, who said before he was elected he was going to sign this into law. On a more local level, a Green Bay, Wisconsin City Council committee delayed a vote to consider a proposed ordinance to lower marijuana possession penalties, and the Lawrence, Kansas City Commission is considering a proposal to lower marijuana penalties too. Out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, members of the Oklahoma City Council have passed a citywide ordinance shielding minor marijuana offenders from arrest and jail. While the policy does not amend the criminal classification of cannabis violations under local law, it does change how police interact with low-level offenders. Under the ordinance, which takes effect October 26th, police will issue a citation to marijuana possession offenders in lieu of making an arrest and taking them to jail. You know, Oklahoma's been it has been the worst place in the nation for marijuana possession for a long, long time. The new policy also lowers the maximum fines for marijuana possession to $400 and caps the maximum fine for possessing cannabis paraphernalia to $50. Oklahoma City Police Chief Bill City proposed the policy change, stating, quote, "What we're trying to do is not put so many people in jail. It's not reasonable anymore and hasn't been for quite some time," end quote. Amen. Several municipalities, such as Dallas and Houston, Texas, impose similar cite and release policies. Under Oklahoma state law, minor marijuana possession offenses are punishable by up to a year in jail and a $1,000 fine. From down and under, Melbourne, Australia, statewide cannabis legalization is not positively associated with an increased risk of adults abusing the substance, according to data published in the journal Drugs in Context. Australian researchers assessed whether the legal status of cannabis in U.S. states impacted the likelihood of adults using it problematically. They concluded, quote, "Our results also show that legalization status in the United States is not associated with problematic cannabis use and impulsivity." The current findings go beyond prior studies to suggest that at this point in time, the legalization status of cannabis has not shown an association with cannabis use among frequent users, a finding supported by a growing body of literature, end quote. The findings are consistent with those of prior studies showing declines in the prevalence of so-called cannabis use disorder and other measurements of problematic cannabis use in the United States despite the enactment of statewide marijuana liberalization laws. This study, exploring the association of legalization status of cannabis with problematic cannabis use and impulsivity, is in the USA, is available online. From St. Louis, Missouri, the intermittent use of cannabis can play a positive role in opioid-dependent subjects undergoing treatment, according to information published in the journal Cannabis and Cannabinoid Research. Researchers from the Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis assessed data evaluating the relationship between the use of cannabis and opioids. They reported, quote, adjunct cannabis use alongside current treatment strategies could help improve the number of individuals engaging in opioid use disorder treatment, as well as increase treatment retention rates. Specifically, the authors acknowledged that the use of CBD in association with reduced opioid cravings and relapse, and that cannabis acts synergistically with the opioids to provide analgesic benefit at subtherapeutic doses. The authors also suggest that, quote, cannabis may be an efficacious tool in the treatment of symptoms associated with opioid withdrawal, end quote. They concluded, quote, the opioid overdose epidemic is arguably the worst public health crisis in U.S. history. A continental crisis of this magnitude warrants the immediate implementation of novel strategies that prevent opioid misuse, overdose, and death. Growing preclinical and clinical evidence appears to support the use of cannabis for these purposes. The evidence summarized in this article demonstrates the potential cannabis has to ease opioid withdrawal symptoms, reduce opioid consumption, ameliorate opioid cravings, prevent opioid relapse, and improve opioid treatment retention, and reduce overdose deaths, end quote. Separate clinical trial data published online last week in the journal Addiction reported that daily cannabis users undergoing therapy for opioid dependence are far more likely to complete their treatment regimen than non-users. This new study, Emerging Evidence for Cannabis' Role in Opioid Use Disorder, appears in this month's edition of Cannabis and Cannabinoid Research. From Toronto, Canada, the long-term administration of cannabis plant-derived extracts containing a 50-to-1 ratio of CBD to THC is safe and effective in children with treatment-resistant epilepsy, according to trial data published in the journal Annals of Clinical and Translational Neurology. Canadian researchers assessed the adjunctive use of proprietary CBD THC extracts manufactured by a Canadian company called Tilray over a 20-week period in children with Dravet syndrome. Investigators reported that the treatment was safe and well tolerated and was associated with reduced seizure frequency and improvements in their quality of life. The researchers concluded, quote, to our knowledge, this is the first of its kind to examine with rigor the dosing and tolerability of mixed cannabinoid products containing both CBD and THC in children with drug-resistant epilepsy. Our study adds to a growing body of evidence that cannabinoids exert anti-seizure effects and are safe and tolerable in treating pediatric Dravet syndrome and epilepsy, end quote. In June, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration granted market approval to plant-derived CBD extract Epidiolex for the treatment of pediatric epilepsy. Unfortunately, it cost almost $40,000 a year. Last month, investigators associated with the University of California Center for Medicinal Cannabis Research announced that the U.S. DEA had granted them permission to import Tilray's plant-derived CBD THC formulations into the United States for use in clinical trials of adults with essential tremor, or ET. The full text of this study, a prospective open-label trial of CBD THC cannabis oil in Dravet syndrome, appears online. Next story is from Olympia, Washington. This is our last story for tonight. Representatives of Washington State's Liquor and Cannabis Board have reevaluated their stance with regard to the retail sale of a variety of cannabis-infused products, such as hard candies and fruit chews. Following a review by staff regulators announced last week that the sale of infused products that may be especially appealing to children will no longer be permitted. The specific products targeted by the board are hard candy, tarts, fruit chews, jellies, and all gummy-type products. My wife likes those gummy-type products. Under the change, retailers will be allowed to sell their existing inventory until April 3rd, 2019. Sale of infused chocolates, cookies, caramels, and mints will continue to be permitted. Infused edible products comprise an estimated 9% of Washington's retail cannabis market. that is the end of our hemp news segment tonight. And Mr. John Cornett has been standing very patiently by for the past 15 minutes or so, maybe 20, waiting for me to finish.
No problem, Paul. Hey, it's worth the wait. I'm hearing some good news. One of the news, a big part of your news you were talking about there about the effects of cannabis on opioid use and addiction and so forth. I am a walking, living example of that.
I know that.
I was on 720 milligrams of OxyContin per day.
That would kill me. If I took that, I would die.
Well, see, I built up to it.
And I'm a lot bigger than you.
But my doctors considered me an experiment. But anyway, I got through it, and when I had to come back, because I have a failed laminate kidney fusion, L4, L5, S1. Anyway, a lot of other stuff too. I have epilepsy, chronic seizures. So because of the CBD oil and cannabis oil, I'm able to walk around. I haven't had a real seizure since January.
All right.
March was, but anyway, it's amazing. It's a miracle. Thank you. Anyway, I also like the many flavors and the way it tastes. And this song is dedicated to Brother Eric Llewellyn, who is not able to be here with us tonight. And it's called So Good. We love you, Eric. We look forward to you coming back, brother. Goes like this. Get a little bit of sound going on here, huh? Almost forgot. We like train wreck, Northern Lights. We like Big Bud too, Hawaiian Big Bud. Yeah. Life is good. Life is good. Oh yeah. Life is good for you and me. So good. So good. So good. So good. We like God, but Lemon Pledge. We like Headband too, Cinderella. Life is good. Life is good. Life is good for you and me. So good. So good. So good. So good. Well, it don't matter which you like. Don't matter when you do it. It just matters that you do it right. And get down to it. So good. So good. So good. So good. Get back soon, Eric. We love you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Hey, welcome to the show, Dustin.
Nice to meet you, Paul.
Dustin Brandon. My pleasure. We just met here, but I've heard that you were interested in coming on the show, and I'm glad to have you here. You have been working as a comedian.
I've been working as a comedian, man, and something I've always wanted to do. What really kickstarted me, I moved to Portland to start my activism in cannabis.
When was that?
Just a year ago.
Okay. Where were you from?
Just a year ago. I come up from Medford.
Okay.
Born and raised Boston, Massachusetts.
When did you go from Boston to Oregon?
Yeah, I moved. I went to college out in Wisconsin. Essentially, I played wheelchair basketball at the Duke. Wheelchair basketball.
Where in Wisconsin?
Shout out to Whitewater, Wisconsin.
All right.
We were there 4 years. I was there 4 years. We won 3 national championships in 4 years.
All right.
We were very good, man. I met some amazing people, and that led me on my journey to Arizona, where my brother lived. And speaking on what we were just talking about, the opioid epidemic, I don't mind talking about it. Arizona is where I found my love for opioids.
So let me ask you, how did you become disabled? You're in a wheelchair now, and have you had 2 legs amputated?
Nope. So I'll come out here. I'll show you guys. I don't mind showing the camera.
Sure. Uh-oh, but your microphone didn't go along.
Fix that here in a second. Yeah, man. So disabled, born and raised disabled. I got it from my father. It's called osteogenesis.
Okay.
Imperfecta. It's a brittle bone disease.
Okay.
So I'm 35 years old.
So you've had hundreds of broken bones.
So talking about the opioid epidemic and pain pills, I'm 35 years old. I've broken and fractured over 400 bones in my life.
400. Now we've got
I've had over
about 200 bones. So a lot of yours have been broken multiple times.
I've had over 45 surgeries. I have rods everywhere, wires everywhere. So when we talk about the pill push on people, you know, I went through it, man. I went through it hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was.
What different pills did they prescribe to you for pain?
You know what? At one time, they had me on over close to 350 milligrams worth of OxyContin a day.
Which would kill me.
Which would kill a human being. Somewhere inside of me is an 8-foot-pound, 300-pound gorilla. But it's because, you know what I mean, I'm a strong guy dealing with that.
When did you first get prescribed these hard opiates?
I found out that, now, when I was born with 2 broken femurs. So right away,
wow,
injuries took over my life.
Yeah.
But I found out when I was 2 years old, I was addicted to codeine.
When you were 2.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, but your parents
old,
now told you they gave you, which is one of the hardest drugs to quit.
Yeah.
It's like one of the worst,
at
from what I've heard.
At 2 years old.
Yeah, and
so
then so did you get withdrawn from codeine when you were 2, and then
up until I really quit about 3 years ago. I had gone through withdrawals over 300 times in my life. And if you've ever gone through withdrawals on opiates, imagine the worst flu in your life times 100. You know what I mean? It's you know, it's no joke.
Yeah.
And to tell you that cannabis has gotten me through that, it's unbelievable. Forget the comedy and forget what I do right now with all that.
Yeah.
Cannabis is simply
been a lifesaver.
It's why I have this. It's the heart of my life.
Yeah.
It's why we're here.
So you were born in Massachusetts.
Born in Boston, Massachusetts.
And how long did you live in Massachusetts?
Grew up there till I was 18. I don't mind saying, you know, both of my parents were real pieces of crap. One was an alcoholic. The other one was a pharmaceutically induced nutcase.
Was that because they had the same condition and were in pain?
You know, me having a disability had nothing to do with it. Unfortunately,
one of your parents had the same disability.
One of my parents had the exact same disability. My dad did, and instead of him, he didn't turn to opiates. He turned to beer and alcohol.
Yeah, as many people do.
That's what he did That's what he did to manage his disability.
Right.
So. Yeah, so you know, that's how he handled it, and unfortunately it led to him not being a very good parent. But so when I was 8 years old, I went to a state institution.
If you're drinking a lot of alcohol, I don't think you can be a very good parent.
No, and that led me through foster care. That led me into actually a state institution run for kids with disabilities. So from the time I was 8 years old until I was 18 years old, I never went home. I was at the school 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And then you went to this college in Wisconsin. How old were you when you started there?
18 years old.
So straight out of that other situation?
I was a full-grown, I was an adult ready to take on the world. And
so you went directly from Massachusetts to Wisconsin. I just spent almost 6 days in Wisconsin, there in Madison, at the Great Midwest Marijuana Harvest Fest.
You just missed out on the cold weather.
Oh, yeah.
No, Madison.
There was a little bit of rain and cold, but the last couple of days were sunny.
Hey, shout out to Madison. We got great people out there.
There are.
We really great people out there.
Yep, there are. And that event in Madison, Wisconsin is the oldest marijuana event in the known world. There's no other event that we know of outside of the Great Midwest Marijuana Harvest Fest, which just had its 48th iteration.
Hey, congratulations.
That is older than that. And so I want to thank the folks in Madison, from Shelley to Tammy and Dennis and Ruth and Mark and Misha and all the people who put that event on, whose names I can't recall every one of. Thanks for having me back. I look forward to seeing you next year.
I look forward to meeting you next year.
Yeah, you should come out there.
But hey, getting back to what I do.
Yeah.
So I moved to Portland to start this cannabis activism stuff, and you know, here I am. I'm doing it in Portland because Portland's the place to be. And man, there's so much to do out here. We have a lot to do as far as you know. Oh, my bad.
No, that's okay.
No.
We have these little hand signals.
No worries.
It's
my first interview. It confused me.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good, man. But you know, I moved out here because it's I have 2 loves in my life: cannabis and comedy. and to be able to do them both together and to put on events in town, and not just events where they're OLCC allowed and we're allowed to medicate on site, and we don't have to go down the street.
So is that we have a video ready? Is this recent one? Give us kind of
Please.
an intro to this
So
video.
this is my very first event. This is what made my name in Portland, Oregon.
And when was this? About a year ago?
This is September 8th, just 2 months ago.
Just short time, not even 2 months.
At the Northwest Cannabis Club here in town.
Yep, the first one. So
I'm laughing because enjoy this.
all right, we'll be right back after this brief video.
Oh, that's what you do. Let me see that thing. All right. Can I talk about the 420 account?
That is pretty wild. That was like a Cheech and Chong scene there.
So mind if I talk about something real quick that's
Go
close
right
to my
ahead,
heart?
please do.
So doing these events,
That's why you're here.
I've met some amazing people in this town.
Yeah.
You included, everyone in business included. But I've also learned a lot of things that's hitting our community very hard. And one of those big, huge things is social media. Facebook, Instagram, and the shutdowns. And even the shutdowns with bank accounts, I'm talking all across the board. But where I can make an impact and where I'm going to make an impact is this 2019 on 420, we're going to make a difference. I'm going to bring 100,000 people down to Sunnyvale, California. And we have some great backers right now. I got White Label. I got some great friends. And we're going to show up to Sunnyvale, California at Instagram headquarters outside of Mark Zuckerberg's office. And we're going to bring 420 down to them. And we're going to make some changes, Paul.
All right.
Yeah.
I heard, and I'm not. Let me just check my message here.
Sure.
A recent Facebook. This is out just less than an hour before we went on the air
Okay.
at 7 o'clock. From Forbes.com, Facebook has lifted the ban on cannabis pages. I have not been subject to that ban, but I know a lot of other people have.
You mind if I say real quick?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Shout out to Best Buyers. I'm Cannabis. She is a pioneer at this. She didn't just get shut down on 3 different accounts. I mean, this girl worked her butt off to get over 100,000 followers per account and got shut down. You guys know White Label here in town. Amazing people, amazing processors. Just lost a great account of theirs. 3 accounts in 3 days. And when you call, you can't get an explanation. You can't email. You can't do anything.
So they lost their Facebook accounts.
They lost their Instagram. But
Instagram.
people should know Instagram owns Facebook and vice versa.
Yeah, yeah.
So it cripples the industry. Social media is a very big part of what we do in this world. And it's no problem for Jose Cuervo and for Big Pharma to have all these accounts. But when we do it, we get shut down. And that's the stuff that needs to change.
I agree. My friend Jorge Cervantes had 1,000 videos taken off YouTube just overnight. Very, very popular videos.
Unreal.
So I have had 19 different bank closures since 2007, where at one time I had 22 accounts closed by Wells Fargo. Different political accounts, personal accounts, credit card accounts. That was just one closing. I've actually been through 19 different bank closures.
It's amazing. And a very good friend of mine, STK Snacks, Jill Chinchero. She's one of the greatest ladies you will ever meet in this industry. And every time I see her, she tells me about a new bank account that gets shut down.
Yeah. Our doctors have had their bank accounts shut down.
It's unreal.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that will change sometime soon. Facebook's changing. At least there's that, right?
Hey, we got to start somewhere.
You know, have you ever been to the Seattle Hemp Fest?
No.
It is very inspirational. I recommend, if you can, get down there next year. We have some video of a panel from the Seattle Hemp Fest from their Hemposium about preserving cannabis genetics and some people working in that industry. So we're going to roll this video, and we'll be right back with Dustin Brandon to talk about cannabis and activism, comedy, and the law. So stay tuned.
My name is Beth Schechter, and I run an organization called Open Cannabis Project. We are a nonprofit whose main mission is to document as many cannabis and hemp varieties as possible for the primary purpose of keeping overbroad patents off of cannabis. We've seen a few go through actually recently in Canada, which is a bit of a bummer. And so we're working to basically collect as much information as we can to prevent that happening in the future. And in doing so, we are creating a large open data set of cannabis data that can be used by scientists, by researchers, by anybody who's really interested in studying the plant. And I'm really excited to build this out and get it out there because, as we know, there are so many. There's a bit of a nomenclature issue going on with cannabis, where like one thing of Blue Dream might not be genetically related to something else that's called Blue Dream. Well, what would be great would be able to have a bunch of data from a lot of different Blue Dreams so that you all can see the differences between all of them and start making better choices as patients and consumers. So yeah, I'm Beth Schechter, and that's what I do.
Hi, I'm Daniel John. I go by DJ for short, or DJ Short. I've been breeding cannabis for a long time now. Basically, my method that I use the most is just objective and subjective analysis of finished product, primarily on myself and other various people, to determine which are the most desirable strains. And that's basically my mode of operation for doing that. Bunches of other things, but that's the basics of it. Now, I very much am into finding some way of making these things public domain to keep them out of anybody's hands that can claim ownership. And we have a little bit of an uphill struggle on that, but do what we can.
Hi, I'm Kevin Jodry. Thank you for coming. I'm a owner of Wonderland Nursery. I've been involved in cannabis probably 40, I think I just turned 52, so 41 years now. And a lot of my desire now at this stage in my life and career is really to keep moving genetics into the hands of the people. I believe that fundamentally the cannabis varietals were preserved by the cultivators themselves. And so you had this chemovar-cultivar intersection where the plant would work for the purposes needed and the quality of the product was desirable and suitable for the individuals who used it. And to me, so much of it right now is a chase and a race for who can control the material. And so for me, I think I have one of the largest populations of plants that are mapped genetically, which then makes it more of an open source situation so that people have some situation that allows them to use these things and someone can't come along and say, hey, we've already stamped and marked this prior. And I've done that with CBD cultivars where I released ACDC into the system. So that was the first time CBD material was released at a wholesale level, and I gave away 150,000 clones for free to the public so that that varietal is global. And that's still the basic desire of what I seek now, is to allow individuals to be able to have their own cannabis varieties, the own things that they use, so that you're not dependent on mainstream production methodologies.
I have so many questions, but I'm going to try and just kind of slow down here. So when we started Trailblaze in Washington State, we were given 15 days to source our genetics. And we've always stayed by the stance that we got them from the Tooth Fairy and from Santa Claus. We were lucky enough, honestly, that we have come from a long line of growers and knew where to get genetics. But if you weren't as lucky as we were, how do people source genetics and what are they looking for when they do that?
Fundamentally, you're sourcing genetics for your need. And so if one has a desired outcome, then what you would have to do is you'd have to look for people who are in similar situations as you, who utilize things of that nature. There is no large company you're going to go to that has a base of everything you want and desire, because what they work off of is trends. And for people that are breeders, like, so I say, Dan has got a history of breeding a lot of the similar cultivars, where I mean the genetic material's been the same. Because in those gene pools that he selected, he finds qualities that allow them to steer a direction. And so you want to find people who are working in similar situations to yourself, so that you can start to get material that's kind of been proven to work. And then once you get into that material, now you can start to breed into it yourself to kind of fine-tune what you're seeking and what you desire. And I think that most people believe it's this instantaneous, I run to the store, I buy what I need right now, and I'm in. And it's not. It's really a lifetime pursuit of chasing it. And people try to chase trends, I think, too quickly. They try to go for strain du jour, what's hot today, I want to be what's hot today. And the bottom line is you have to take a look at what's hot for time. And the truth of it is that good cannabis from the 1970s is still good cannabis in 2018.
Beware the hype. There's a lot of hype going on right now, and that lends to this popularity. As far as acquiring genetics, I mean, they're out there, but we're all dealing with this same wretched legal gray area. My hope and dream is someday that this will all be treated the same way as tomatoes, right? Now, my analogy for tomatoes is, let's say, for example, I were utilizing available genetics and played around with them, and I came up with a tomato that were small, blue, sweet, and tasted like blueberries. What would the law be regarding those seeds? I mean, I can lease them out to Burpee or Cargill or whomever, but there's already an established protocol in terms of how to deal with these things genetically, and let's just do what we do with tomatoes for cannabis.
You talked about open source. What is open source for those of us that might not know?
So they start talking a little bit about open source there, and you know, open source is a term that's often used in the software industry for open source code for your software, which means you don't sell the software, you have an open license. I think that's the way it should be for DNA. In fact, I filed an initiative here in Oregon to make DNA open source code, so it could not be patented. That is part of the reason why this banner is turned around right here behind me, because an Israeli-Canadian oil company, Adira Energy, came in and attacked me based on lies, misinformation. Like I know you posted something saying I sold my company to Empower. No, I formed Empower. I had personally the trademark for Empower. These people stole it from me. I didn't sell it to them. They never paid me a penny, you know, but based on overwhelming lawyers, basically they spent $2 million and I spent $170,000. Theoretically, we will be going to trial on this in March right here in Multnomah County, and I'm asking for a jury. But part of that is that George Soros owns a large part of Monsanto, and their money is tied up in patents of DNA, and they decided to take me out.
It's unreal.
Yeah. Now, John Cornett has something to say here. Go right ahead, John.
Just real quick, Paul, it's relative to the discussion prior. It's very important for people to know how to get around some of this banning and so-called banning. There's a thing called shadow banning that the big portals use to try to redirect traffic and take you away from the excitement of what's going on. And one way to get around that, I think is a good way to get around. One way of shadow banning is put you at the bottom of the list so you can't see what comes up on a search. So one of the ways to do that is to put take your family filter off. Take the safe search off for a few minutes, because that's the only way you're going to get around Google's mega filters, which are going to take away us getting to the truth. And it's really important to do that. I know about this because I'm a former network engineer, and I know how these wicked people work, making sure that they change the discussion and the reality. And that's all I got to say, except one other thing. Yes, the open source, I'm all about that. My music is all open source. If somebody wants to get it and play it, and I don't care. I don't care. I look forward to it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I've believe cannabis has been cultivated for 25,000 years. Yep. It's been changed many, many times in many different climates, more than any other plant, because it's been cultivated more than any other plant. We talk about these recent developments over the past 20 years. By the way, that was DJ Short, who's from Pendleton. There was a long time that DJ had to stay in the corner. And he talked about tomatoes with a flavor of blueberry. Well, yeah. DJ Short invented or bred the first blueberry varieties of cannabis right here in Oregon back in the 80s. But anyway, that's the only person on that panel I recognized was him. But the others also had some good points. But basically, we need to allow cannabis to be cultivated so that we can make oil. That's the main thing, to disrupt the entire petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, elite, fascist, sons of bitches. This plan is to allow our farmers to grow the varieties that produce the most seed, and those are going to be varieties that have a lot of THC.
Yep.
It's not going to be the low THC varieties. Those produce about 1/10 the amount of seed and 1/2 the amount of fiber.
Yep.
So we need to grow high THC cannabis to produce the most seed and the most fiber. This is hemp oil with a hemp wick. Here's next week's wick. And this is hempcrete, which is concrete made out of marijuana stems and quicklime.
Let's add the candle to the end, and we'll just add a cannabis pen right there.
All right.
Beautiful.
All right. Some balance. So tell us more about your journey. So you went to a college in Wisconsin, played basketball.
Followed in the footsteps of my older brother,
But
who
then
also
go ahead.
played wheelchair basketball there.
Uh-huh.
And then moved to Arizona to also follow him. And then, Arizona is, get back there, man. Arizona is where I found my love for opiates. They handed them out like candy. And while I told them I'd rather use cannabis, they told me if I
What year was that?
This was, so I'm 35. This was about 22, 23 years old, fresh out of college.
Okay, so about 14 years ago.
14 years ago. And everybody in my life telling me that if I have any kind of cannabis in my system, I'll lose my job, I'll lose my house, I'll lose my medical benefits. So, but hey, you can take 180
Take all these
Oxycontins.
pills, but only you can't stay awake and you drool a lot.
It was all right at first. You know, the first few months are okay until you start depending on them.
Yeah.
Until, you know.
Then it's a panic if you don't have them.
Yeah, and then it's a panic, and then you're losing jobs, you're losing your stuff, and your doctor's saying, "Oh, I know the solution. Let's give you a higher dosage." And I say, "I know what the solution is. It's right here." And they say, "No, but if you have that in any kind of part of your urine,
then they're going to cut you off cold turkey.
It could take you to jail too."
Yeah.
It's
so
so crazy in our world.
You were in Arizona till just a year ago?
I was in Arizona just up to about 4 years ago. I moved to Medford, Oregon to start. We started a wheelchair basketball team there. Very successful 2 years. And then I actually ended my career by getting hit by a truck crossing the street in midday. I was crossing the street, had the right of way, and got hit.
Well, that must have been broken. I mean, that would break a lot of my bones.
I'll tell you what, I went to OHSU from Medford, airlifted up there with over 35 breaks and fractures.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, really bad. And when I tell
so
you,
once you came to Oregon, you were able to access medical cannabis.
Well, I've always had cannabis in my life.
Right.
Whether the law is going to tell me yes or no, whether my doctor's going to tell me yes or no. But coming up here, I knew my doctors would support it. I know about how easily availability we had of it. And I knew, I mean, on a part of spending money on it, because, you know, we have to spend money on our medicine for it, and it's cheaper up here. And the quality is amazing.
It's a lot better. Tell me how you were able to quit opiates using marijuana, and if you're still using opiates now for breakthrough pain or on a regular basis.
Well, it's been, I'll tell you what got me to stop all the way. Was the recent loss of my sister about 6 months ago.
And how did she pass?
She took her own life, actually.
I see.
Did
she have a medical condition?
She was an amazing. She had bipolar.
Okay.
And she was, again, over pharmaceutically given medication.
So she
for
didn't have
bipolar
the
disorder.
brittle bone disorder.
No, she didn't. She was an able-bodied person. She had her medical license. She was a pharmacist. She went through med school. Very successful. In fact, on the DL, she used cannabis for her symptoms. But a scare at work and being a pharmacist, she had to go right back on the meds. And that last time she went back on the meds was enough for her to
Where was she living at?
Florida.
Florida.
Which is, if you don't know, Florida, even though they just went medical, they're not very big fans of it on the real. And it was enough for her to go to the store and buy a gun and take her life.
That's horrible. That's
so
horrible. So that got you to quit doing the opiates.
I quit alcohol. I quit opiates. I went full-time into this career. I went full-time into cannabis activism. I mean, if there was ever something in this world that pissed me off, it was...
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
So
I heard you swear earlier. If you don't mind me saying proudly, I will probably say fuck Big Pharma.
Yeah.
Y'all can see this every day.
Okay. Yep, I think they're fascists.
Yeah.
And
you want to hear something crazy?
Sure.
You know Purdue. You know, we all know Purdue Pharma, right? The makers of OxyContin, the makers of
sure,
everything.
yeah. Now I know who you mean.
They are now coming out with, after saying, "Oh, we know opiates, what they do." They're now coming out with the medicine
to treat
people to treat it.
Right.
So not only do they put it on the market to kill us, now they're coming out with the only remedy
Yeah, the only approved remedy for
the only
their...
FDA approved remedy.
Right.
Forget cannabis.
Those people are billionaires. They
It's-
belong in jail. There's no doubt.
God, it's insane.
You know, we're down to about 6.5 minutes left. We have about a 3-minute video we're going to run about building houses with hemp. And we'll be right back after this video.
Some of the most practical uses of industrial hemp in the modern day, of course, are the same as they ever were. Building materials, paper, textiles, seed oil, nutrition. Hempcrete, of all the 50,000 known products that we can make with industrial hemp, is my absolute favorite. It is a mold-resistant, rot-resistant, pest-resistant, fire-resistant, carbon-negative building material.
Now, the most difficult part of pioneering industrial hemp in Oregon is the lack of understanding. People still believe that hemp can get you high, when in fact there is no psychoactive components to this. So it's a matter of educating people, and we're working on that. Hemp in the United States can be an incredibly viable commodity. Since the beginning of time, it's the only plant that can feed you, house you, clothe you, and heal you. It has hardy fiber, strongest fibers found in nature. Every part of the plant can be used. You know, from the stalk, the leaves, and the flowers, and the seeds. And each one of those components can be used for thousands of different uses each. These plants will take usually 3 to 4 months. They'll reach heights of 8 or 9 feet, and we'll harvest them, and then we'll separate out the fibers and the flowers, the seeds, and the rest of the vegetation to make different products.
I think in order to launch Hempcrete Building, to make it real, you have to have a model. So my vision is to take this house and retrofit it with hempcrete and demonstrate that it's a viable building process. In fact, it's everything that you want in a building, in a wall. It's permeable, so it mediates the humidity in the room. But since the wall absorbs the humidity and the lime that you build with is a high pH, it doesn't mold. So the wall will hold on to the humidity and disperse it inside or outside as it's needed. Buildings consume 40 to 50% of the world's energy. So if we could establish Hempcrete Building, it's huge. And as you get more into the nature of hemp and its abundant properties, that becomes part of the imagination of what a hempcrete building can be.
The future of hemp is an opportunity for everyone. We're going to find sustainable uses that we'd never even thought were possible, and taking advantage of a knowledge base that has never been created because it's been illegal. And I would hope to see, 5 years from now, just growing in fields of green.
I think hemp has a lot of answers for nutrition, for energy saving, for building. The ideal future is that we have enough hemp growing on the planet in the hands of as many people as find use for it, because it has so much to give.
All right, so that is a hemp building, as we've been showing here on our show for a long time, Hempcrete. So we're down to about 2.5 minutes left here, Dustin. So what have you got coming up here?
Most of my events and what I do with a great place and a great man in town. Mike Kaiser over at the Northwest Cannabis Club.
Yeah.
The video
They're
we just
pioneers here in Oregon.
He's an absolute pioneer. Look him up. I was blessed for him to allow me to do that event, the short clip that we saw. That was the Portlandia first annual. We're doing the second one, December 15th at the Northwest Cannabis Club. Now, I know on that video...
So that's December 15th, and that's right at, 12th and Powell Boulevard?
Yes, sir. If you guys don't know about it, it's a licensed, approved business we have here in town.
It's a private club. You got to
private club. Sorry, yes.
Pay some money to join.
It's a lifetime membership.
Yeah, lifetime membership to
bring
join.
your own medicine.
Yeah.
And you enjoy. But with my events, I'm blessed to know some great farms. I'm blessed to know some great dispensaries. I'm blessed to know some great people. So I know you saw a short clip, but in that last event, in this next event, we're gonna have over 15 sponsors. We're gonna have dab tables. We're gonna have flower tables. we'll
So that's
have
coming up on the 15th of
on
December.
the 15th of December.
There at the Northwest
Not just
Campus.
that, we'll have 10 of the best comedians in town, including myself.
All right.
First and foremost, I love cannabis, but I also love comedy, and I love to be able to bring the two together.
If somebody wants to reach you directly, is there a way they can do that?
Dustin Brandon, everywhere. Hit me on Instagram. The number 2, less legs. 2 less legs.
2 less legs. Okay, well, I want to thank you for coming on,
Thank you,
sir.
Paul.
And hopefully we'll have you back sometime here
Absolutely.
pretty soon to talk more about your comedy. Maybe you can get a routine together and we can run that on here. And if you're interested in finding a doctor who can help you get a medical marijuana permit, we have a referral service to help you find doctors. Do not go to our old business at 18th and Burnside. Call us for a referral to a righteous operator. Call us at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. We are out of time. That's the end of the show. Mr. John Cornette's going to play some music. Thanks for watching. Tune in next week and help us restore him.
Some folks like tomatoes, some like rhubarb pie. I like when my vegetables get me a little high. May not be for everyone, may not